the Civil War Digital Digest. I'm your host, Jeremy, and today we're out at the Hudson Museum in Hudson, Michigan to bring you a story about a local museum that has some amazing Civil War artifacts and stories. And joining me is Mike Mills, who's the assistant to the curator here. Thanks for your time, Mike.
Thanks, Jeremy, and thanks for coming to this small town.
Tell us a little bit about how this came about. There's a story behind this museum, right?
Yeah, there is, thanks. And the Hudson Museum originally began at the Carnegie Library here in town. The cornerstone was laid in 1904 for the library. In 1905, the community have this beautiful library, but it's not full. And so some of the citizens in the community began to take their objects and artifacts and donate them to the library and formed a nucleus of a small museum. This was a vacant bank. It was formerly Thompson Savings Bank, and it had dental offices upstairs. And the owner at the time, Don Murdoch, a well-known philanthropist in this area, donated this building. And everything that you see here, this is a 3-story building with 2 floors of exhibits. Everything that you see here has been donated.
The ambiance here is amazing. You can hear the clocks ticking. You have all these historical clocks around us as well. I'm loving it in here. So tell us, there's a lot of the items came from one particular man, if I remember correctly. That was a Civil War veteran.
You remember correctly. That would be Albert Hudson Boyce. And Albert was actually in 3 different wars: Spanish-American War, the Civil War, and then he wanted people to believe that he was in World War I in the Home Guards. Well, the Home Guards was a very short-lived type of a unit. But nonetheless, during the Civil War, he collected a lot of stuff, and afterwards he then donated much of his collection to the museum.
Fantastic. And you mentioned Thompson, which we're actually going to do an episode about him as well, because there's some fantastic items that you have. So
this was originally Thompson's Bank. It came here in 1867, and there were 2 Thompson brothers, Gamaliel, also known as G.I., and William B. They were both quartermasters in the Civil War. They came to Hudson, went into business with 3 other men, and opened this bank. The family remained here in Hudson for many years, and here in Hudson we also have the Thompson House Museum and Gardens.
If I was looking at visiting the area and wanting to stop by, what are some highlights that I would definitely want to see or could see as a Civil War buff?
There are 2 different infantry regiments that we tend to highlight. One would be the 4th Michigan Infantry, and Hudson had Company F, the Hudson Volunteers. We also had the 18th Michigan Infantry. It, for the most part, formed over in Hillsdale, but it was organized here in Hudson with 180 volunteers from within about a 10-mile radius, went to Hillsdale and joined the 18th Michigan. So we have a muster-out roster from the 18th Michigan. Another thing that's somewhat interesting is we have the original GAR post rosters and the Union Veterans Union roster, because those were both here in Hudson. And we also have some weaponry that's been generously donated. A Spencer rifle, Enfield, Springfield. That's just the beginning of what can be seen.
And just walking around and talking with you, I've seen diaries, personal items, equipment. It's a very varied collection and a lot of different items that someone should definitely come here and check.
A segment of the Civil War collection that we have is also post-Civil War, with GAR ribbons, sharpshooter ribbons, you know, when they had their reunions. Original programs. Upstairs in our file cabinet, we have original programs from all of these events that were collected and available to be viewed, but those on by appointment. Actually, probably the most valuable part of this entire museum is our vault over here. Over the last 30 years, Hazel Monahan, our curator, and her helpers have gone through all of the Hudson newspapers, and Hudson has been fortunate to have a newspaper since 1858. They went through the newspapers, cut out articles by subject matter, put them in 3-ring binders, okay,
wow,
and they're in the vault. And then any images or pictures that we've obtained, those are also properly cataloged. That's nice if you're doing research on your family.
And when you say the vault, you mean an actual vault, because this was a bank.
I do. There's 2 bank vaults here, and they're very ornate. So we traded to the riches. The riches of that area in the form of coins and currency are now replaced with historical
I like
riches.
those.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for watching this episode of the Civil War Digital Digest. Hope you enjoyed learning a little bit about the stories here at this local museum in Hudson, Michigan. And if you're in the southern Michigan area, I highly recommend that you stop by and talk with Mike and his staff, because whether it's Civil War items, some of which I haven't seen elsewhere, up into probably the 1940s, you're going to find something of interest. For Civil War Digital Digest, I'm Jeremy. See you next time.